All right, so Gracie and I are both set up in our tent, ready to start coding. We have our two microbits ready to go, one that's connected to the container and the other one that's going to act as a alarm receiver that we can keep here in the tent. Now, because both microbits are going to serve two different purposes, we have to code them separately. So let's start out by coding our container microbit, or the one that will be connected to our container of cocoa. So for that, we have to start off with our forever loop. And the first thing we're going to do is grab, under the logic section, an if-else statement. Now, essentially the only input that we are receiving, that we want to receive, I should say, is our pin 0 is pressed or released. So we're going to actually add that to our if-else statement. We're going to say if pin 0 is pressed, then we want this to happen. If it's not pressed, we want this to happen. Now, obviously, if pin 0 is pressed, that's a good thing. That means that the lid is snapped on and secure. So really, this first section of our code, or of our if-else statement, is going to be left blank. And really the bulk of our code for this sequence here is going to be happening under the else statement. Now, the first thing we wanted to do for this is actually have it say something. And remember at the first, Gracie, you were saying we could have it say busted so that we can say busted to the squirrel and things, right? But we ran into an issue with that, right? What was that?
It was like, so we did that, but then like it took 2 seconds to get from the B to the U to the S to the T and so on.
Yeah, so it took too long, right? It basically, with the microbit, because messages scroll past on the LED screen, it takes too long for it to spell out a specific word, especially a word as long as busted. And we really wanted this to happen a lot quicker. So, I don't know, is there another idea that we can, something else we can choose? We have our string, so do we want to still show a string?
Sure.
Okay.
We can do, bird. So we can say like, busted to the squirrel except in a shorter way.
Yeah, that's a good thing to do. I think ha would be saying the same thing, so we can say ha, gotcha, right? So we have that message happening to begin with. Now, what we also want to do is have this microbit send a message to the other microbit that's going to be in our tent. So that's where we go into our radio section here. And under there, we have radio send. And this, it can be a number, it can be a string, it doesn't really matter, because it's basically just a message that this microbit is sending out to another microbit. And we can just have this at any number. Why don't we just say 1? Right? Does that work? Or what? What could we say? Can be anything.
20 is one of my lucky numbers.
Okay, so let's say 20 for that message. And the next thing we want to do is have it wait for a second. So we're going to go back into here, and we're going to have it pause. And the amount of time that it pauses for in the make code interface is in microseconds. So we're going to actually put this at 3 seconds by saying 3,000 microseconds. And after that, we want to have it clear its screen. So what's happening here is that if pin 0 is not pressed, meaning that it's released, we want it to show this string and say ha. We want it to send this radio message, radio number 20, out to another microbit. And we want it to pause for 3 seconds just to wait before it asks that question again. We also want it to clear its screen, because if, for example, the next time it asks this question and the pin 0 is pressed, then we want it to actually do nothing and not still show this message, right? Now, before we move on, we have one last thing to do in order to make sure that whatever message it sends out into its surroundings, we want it to send it out on the proper channel. And Gracie and I were thinking about this part of the code as being kind of similar to what we do with our walkie-talkies. So we always bring walkie-talkies while we're camping, and in order to make sure that we can talk to each other, we have to be on the same channel. So it's the same thing with the radio function. Down here we have radio set group, and we can set this group to anything again, as long as both microbits are set to the same group, and we can say maybe set to group 100. So that's it for the code. This is for the container. Now the container is ready to go with its code. All we have to do is download this to our microbit and it will be ready to go. The next thing we're going to do is move into the code for the other piece of this puzzle, and that is the alarm receiver that we're going to keep in our tent.